Sarah's first. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Louise. Week 3 of our standoff, our game of chicken.
I didn't know if we were gonna do it.
Well, we both just sat here when it
Oh,
started.
our reel actually had it today because I was like, I have to. It's too funny. I don't
It's
know
so
why it's so
funny.
stupid.
I know what people are in our inside jokes might too bad. They're funny
You know
to
what?
us.
They are funny. We need some levity. And here
Yep.
is before we start, we have some good news for our next season, which isn't until November, but season 9 will be, you say.
Oh, Angela Tucker, we're going to read her book, You Should Be Grateful.
Yeah.
So we'll announce this again as the
Mm-hmm.
closer we get, but if you're listening and you want to read along with us, order
Mm-hmm.
Angela Tucker's book, and we'll put a link in our show notes
Yeah.
for this episode so you can get it. So,
Yeah. She gave us a link. So we're excited, Angela.
yeah.
Anyway,
And today
and
we're back and two more very heavy episode
before we came on,
chapters.
live here, I told Sarah, wow, they're just getting, I mean, she really staged this well, how she laid this out. They're getting harder and
Hmm.
harder. I mean,
This
ooh.
these two were just
Mm,
particularly bad. The first one, Susan, the third Susan in the book, was in love with her boyfriend and then got pregnant and assumed they were going to get married because they'd been talking about getting married, and her parents were on board for
I
them getting
know.
married, and his parents, I think, were on board. Maybe that's a little murky, but
Yeah,
they
they
all
didn't
got
say a little
together.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, I love you, but I, I can't do this.
He told her he loves you, but he can't because her father was a cop,
Right. And he was afraid. Yeah.
which I thought, isn't that a teenage boy's reaction?
Yeah. I can't live with a cop. Yeah. Because they were going to live with her
They were going to
parents.
live with their parents, and they were all like on board. I didn't understand how it went so quickly the other way because she was 17, senior.
I know. Well, because it
Yeah.
still was that
Shame. Yeah.
era of you have to be married. You can't be a single mom.
Mm-mm.
So rather than, do that, let's just traumatize everyone and give the baby away. I
Yeah.
mean, people didn't know. Um,
No, they didn't know, but it's interesting how hers unfolded because she does name her daughter Madeline,
mhm.
and she's madly in love with her, wants to keep her, has no say in it. I mean, has to do the priest. I mean, it was interesting because she met with the father, the priest. She called him father, obviously, and
Who
it was
was
like
just so nonchalant. Yeah, how you doing?
nonchalant.
That was after the
Yeah,
baby was born, right? It was like, and
yeah,
all his only agenda was sign the papers, sign the papers.
yeah. How's school? Like, are you
Yeah.
joking? So clueless about, as we know, you know, that's what happened. But then what was interesting, we talked about this on our last time. She ends up finding someone to marry.
Right. But
Anybody.
before that, but we have to say the social worker, they gave, or it was the priest that gave a blank piece of, like,
Oh,
she
hmm.
knew it wasn't, there should be information filled in. It should have
Yeah.
her name, the baby, nothing. They just had a blank thing for her to sign. And she
And
just
she was
knew.
smart enough to know she
Mm-hmm.
was.
Yeah. And then she just wanted to get married, have a child, have another child
Yeah.
to, and found a nice guy, but she was still in love with the father of her child.
Through her whole beginning of her marriage with two, and
Mm-hmm.
had two girls
Yep.
and
And
lived
then
with her parents. They did end up having a
her
whole
split,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
that split house. Yep. And then, oh, just tragedy after tragedy. Then she ended
Yes.
up, did she marry somebody
She
else?
did. So she told the husband the truth eventually. Listen, I married
Yes.
you because of this thing I went through.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have somebody show me, that I was legitimate or whatever. And he was heartbroken. What was
He was like,
interesting,
so this
yeah, a
whole time
lie.
was just a lie, you
And
know?
she had learned about through birth mother literature meetings about PTSD. She had the
Yeah,
full
because she had
symptoms.
so many, it's just like
Yep.
adopted people, right? Like physical, like you suffer from that complex PTSD that you don't even know about because it wasn't
Yes.
talked about. She had like pneumonia for 15 weeks or something and migraines and all of that stuff. And it never went away until she finally met Madeline.
Yeah, it
But
never did.
tragedy before that was
Yeah.
her 16-year-old daughter died of leukemia.
Right when she was going to tell her girls. So she
Was going to
wanted to,
finally tell them about, yeah,
had a fourth baby, a fourth girl, a lot of girls. So she had a
yeah,
third girl and thought, I need to, now that I'm now, and she had a new husband. So now that I have this new husband who knows everything, which I loved about him because he said, why wouldn't I want to love your daughter if we find her?
I
Which right
know.
away she loved him. She actually fell in love for the first time after the high school boyfriend. And then they lost this. They were about, her 16-year-old was like this really wise girl. So she wanted to ask her advice how to tell the other girls. And then she gets leukemia and dies. Like, horrible. That's
And then
horrible.
she was so full of grief. And then her other two daughters, when they came running,
Yeah.
she knew, she'd never felt so loved.
Yeah.
And then it was her, then her search was put on hold, of course. But
Of course. Yeah, the one thing she did say, this is kind of to the thing we talk about community, when she did find, tell people, I'm going to find my daughter. She decided to find her daughter, right? And she told everyone there wasn't a person in her life that wasn't on board. Her
yeah,
parents really did want her to find this daughter. I was
yeah.
surprised about that. They were more surprised she was looking. And she did say it was a wonderful feeling to be able to tell people I gave up a child and I'm looking for her. I am a birth mother. That's
Hmm.
what we talk about. So much illness is the hiding of this internal shame.
I know. And then her mother died of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And then Madeline found her because she had put, she had read about the sound X and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And Madeline found her and they had a really great relationship. And
Yeah. And something we touched
she,
on
but
last.
it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Go
interrupt,
ahead.
but one thing, and because I feel like I have this core issue too, right? It's one of the reasons why I felt like I could never have another child. I'm like a one dog, like is the feeling of betrayal. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
would, and I really related to that. She talked about
Yeah.
the betrayal aspect of feeling like she betrayed her daughter and she couldn't do
Loving other
this.
daughters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's true. I kind of related to that too. I'm glad you brought that up because we haven't spoken about that. Something else we talked about on the last one is the fallout that I don't think I thought about till this book of the other families. Like, look, many of us, this is about birth mothers. Many of us have had bad marriages. Many of us married men for the same reasons I married mine, just to have a baby we could keep. That's not fair to
Mm.
anyone. It's not fair to the husband or to the children. My girls were separated from their father because of me, because of her divorce. The consequences are far reaching. And that's something we discussed is last week, I think, about I don't even the fallout keeps going
I know. I
from
need to apologize because I conflated uh the two women, right? I
I
was
do that all the time.
it was Madeline, the next mother,
I'm
who
glad you
had that
finally did
sense of,
it. I do
who
it
had
every
that
week.
it was the other mother who had a sense of betrayal and
Oh,
never had other
yes.
children because she was too
Let,
um
let's get into that mother because that is just this is the one that brutal.
uh, well, and
Ma
she went into a whole self-destructive mode
yeah.
and um
Madeline.
mhm.
So our second mother, Madeline, by the way, I had to send my husband a picture. She went to the University of Colorado in 1960, biggest party school around, and knew nothing from her parents about sex.
It's so
Nothing. You don't send a girl
you
off
know
to the University of Colorado without knowing about sex. Hello. The heck?
I mean just the naivety
Oh,
of that era. I mean, talk about how powerful social
yes.
consciousness is, right? Like
She
this
was like, I'm at this party school and suddenly I'm popular. This cute young girl doesn't even know what she's getting herself
I
into.
know. And didn't even realize that she'd had sex. And then
Oh,
the guy, the guy just
it was
talked crap
rape.
about her, said she was terrible. It was rape,
Yeah.
you know, and then talked about her.
Oh, like, yeah, here, look at this line. This is the shame women went through. Hello. We had necked a few times. Then this thing happened. Then the next morning he told my girlfriend that I was nothing but a slut and I was a bad fuck. I can say that. I was a bad lay because all I did was lie there. So I guess you're really wonderful until they can stick it in you and you're the piece of shit after that.
I mean,
Whoa. Hi. And she didn't even know that they had had sex.
you didn't know.
That she wasn't sure that what that was. Now she knows that she was raped. At the time, she didn't even know that was sex. I
Uh,
mean, that's
yeah.
education is a lot. I
And
just
then
love.
the horror, the nurses when she
Oh, this is
had the
the
baby,
part.
just horrible, so mean to her.
This is the
Would,
meanest account I've
taunted her.
read.
This was really, they taunted her. I
Oh,
bet you want to hold this baby. And like the only time she got to hold the baby was
mm.
down the stairs to the car to give the baby away. Just,
Sarah, it was so awful. Look at this is the most beautiful baby I've ever seen, says the nurse. She's not going to want to give this baby up. And then they kind of showed it to her and
I
took
bet
the
you'd like
baby.
to hold the baby, wouldn't
Oh,
you? This baby, and then they actually said this baby doesn't belong to you. This baby's going to a good home. I mean, she
oh
just went
my
through
God.
hell, like absolute hell.
And the other part about this is the parents. So the parents in this, yes, it's a different era. Yes, it's big stress. Your daughter's pregnant, might look bad on you. The whole thing was, you don't know what we've been through. It's
Oh, I
almost
know. It was all about them.
killing your father and it's killing me. And we've
I
almost
mean,
divorced. The amount of, people grow up, your parents.
yeah,
You've almost killed your father. When you're young, you think that's, wow, I've
I
almost killed,
know.
you know?
And so
Yeah.
then you have that guilt on top of everything else. It's just, it's
Oh my gosh.
unbelievable.
How about
Then
we teach her about sex before we send her to the University of Colorado? That would have
one
helped.
conversation, it's not asking that much.
No.
And she just didn't have any I mean, this is another
Yeah.
common
Yeah.
response to that trauma
Yeah.
that these women went through was just now like almost like you just don't even care.
No boundaries.
She had no boundaries, lots of sex,
Went to New
but
York.
in these dangerous situations that she'd put herself in. I mean, not unlike adoptees again,
I thought the same thing, putting
Yeah.
herself in totally dangerous situation.
That's how I was.
I had no boundaries, no sexual boundaries, no personal boundaries, nothing. I put myself in these incredibly dangerous situations like I almost wanted to be destroyed. I was filled with incredible rage, and she talks about her rage for
The
years.
rage. The
I
rage.
saw
Yeah.
that in Linda's letters, actually. Some very big, from this sweet young girl to very
hmm
angry.
I mean, how can you blame them?
Yeah.
Uh, and then
Mm,
she was she was the one that talked about the deep betrayal, and not being
yeah.
able to, and she just had no self-worth. And she had this love. So later, she does
Yeah.
get married, doesn't have kids and other
Yeah.
kids. And then, but she had these cats. And so when they got reunited,
Yeah.
and the daughter ended up, and the daughter and the husband, worked together to get her more of these rare cats that were very expensive. And
She didn't even think they were for her.
I
Or,
know she had
or
no self-worth, and but she ended up with these two people that really loved her.
yeah,
She
her
had to
husband
lose all
loved
those
her so
years.
much. Yeah. And her daughter now. And they're both artists. There's all the things
Oh, that
adoptees
was the other
talk
thing
about. Yeah.
her daughter, when she found her, was so, oh, and because at first the
Mhm.
husband talked to the daughter,
Yeah.
and so when Madeline came home, he's like, your daughter called. Like, I can't talk to her.
Yeah, she
You need to
couldn't.
call her back. You need to call her back.
He sounds great.
Yeah.
Because we know
Yeah.
so many well, here's another thing too. We do hear about this when a lot of birth mothers are rejecting, and they often
hmm
are because of who they're married to.
Right.
So another thing, education, like, can our hearts be big enough for all these people in our lives? Like, anybody listening, just, you know, he was an advocate why she called back.
hmm
Yeah.
And it was all about her own self-worth.
Yeah. She also said something interesting here about how she had this was the only time I've ever really trying to find it, where she said, I was part of this decision even though I wasn't. Like,
hmm
now
Oh,
n
she said, I'm
yeah,
complicit.
complicit
I'm
because
complicit.
when we know in reality she couldn't have
I
really.
don't feel like
I
that's a
don't
fair
either.
thing, that's being too hard on herself. Like
Right.
it,
That was
I mean,
interesting
what
to
could you
me.
do? What could they're totally pressured by these domineering.
Yeah.
It's just I think that's too hard on
I
herself.
thought it
I
was
mean, I
too hard.
understand her point because I would probably
Yeah.
be that hard on myself too, because I just naturally am. But I think
I feel like
she
no, you
deserves to give herself a break, you know?
let yourself off the hook for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that was just so,
Mm,
so, so sad,
the whole
as they
thing.
all are. This whole entire book.
It is really sad. Well, and our next guest talks a little bit about something in here actually, and
Yep.
so can't wait.
Yep. Talk to Jennifer.
We're gonna read Search and Reunion
Search and
next.
Reunion, chapter 9, next week. Brace yourselves.
Braces. It's true.
Um, okay, well, I will see you in just a minute. We talk to Jennifer.
See you in a minute.